Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And hello, K-Man, and welcome to another episode of Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM. We're your hosts, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon, and yes, welcome to your favorite talk show and your two favorite talk show hosts. Celebrating 4 months now, Mr. Harris. I think we're a bouncing baby boy for sure.
Happy birthday, Straight Talk. Happy birthday, Ellio Solomon. Yes.
And happy birthday to you too, Mr. Harris.
Thank you very much, Mr. Solomon. Yes, 4 months old today, the 10th of June. Obviously having celebrated our first showing here on Bobo 103.1 FM on the 10th of February. And boy, time certainly has flown by.
It has.
By all indications, the show continues to grow. Obviously want to say a great big thank you in the first instance to our listeners, certainly to the early followers, our first 100 followers who expressed such great confidence in what we will bring to the talk show platform. I want to say a big shout out to those people. You know who you are.
Yeah.
And we haven't forgotten you, believe you me. We still have celebratory plans for you. We made a list early on, and again, like I said, we haven't forgotten you, and we want to thank you. Certainly want to thank the new listeners and new followers and subscribers that have come on board since that date. Likewise to the clients who've also joined us and our team, whether it be the Net Clues team, who certainly do provide a lot of assistance. Also, big shout out to Monster Media for always having our back. We're here, 4 months old, and no sign of slowing down yet.
And all those persons who gave us the good financial sponsorship, we greatly appreciate it, keeping us with the balls rolling. And I have to say, the stars have aligned again, Mr. Harris, because no memos shared, no texts, no emails, and we're both wearing blue shirts today.
We are. We were sharing the same thought patterns once again. We must have known this is our birthday colors.
I don't know what it is. I if it is a birthday color, I don't know. I only know that we're aligned again. What is that?
It would be curious to go back to each of the 4 birthdays we celebrated.
See what we wore, right?
And see what we wore, just out of curiosity.
There you go. First
see
person
whether or not we're deciding that blue is the official birthday color.
We should give someone some research work, and here, get $100. Win $100 from Ellio, just for doing the research.
That's right.
But hey, you know,
our political colors.
Yeah, what was that? Don't start any rumors, Austin.
No,
this is how it starts.
There will be none of that. You need not worry about that.
Yeah.
We're having too much fun being liberated without carrying the weight of, as we say, not having to look for a vote and just get to
not having to worry about
doing the job.
Don't say that, Austin. You're going to lose a vote.
Yes, quite right.
Nothing to worry about here.
Nothing to worry about here.
Yeah.
Nothing to see here. Keep moving. Keep moving.
Keep moving. But either way, it is good, and it's 4 months, and we thank God for that. We greatly appreciate it, and we look forward to many, many more.
Yes.
Because we enjoy working together, and we of course, we enjoy hoping that, those listening public out there enjoys the discussion as much as we do, and that we have the opportunity for educating, enlightening, and elevating all, including ourselves. So it's great.
Yeah.
So what's the good news other than that great news?
Well, one would think that, celebrating our 4th birthday would be like the biggest news. And
that was a great news.
We're just waiting for the sun to go down for Graham, to pull up in the truck, the parking lot and start firing off his fireworks. Graham, if you're listening, we do appreciate you. Big shout out to you. But yes, we do have more good news to start us off here on a Tuesday, Super Tuesday, as it has been coined, by sending a big, heartfelt congratulations to the Director of Tourism, Miss Rosa Harris. Again, no relation, but it should be. who has received.
You never know, Austin.
You never know.
You just got to be. You got to be careful with these things. You know.
You do.
Just bear in mind that you probably weren't around. You know.
That's right. I'm not aware of any
there you go.
familial relations.
That would be the politically correct statement.
Right.
Not that I'm aware of.
But I do stand to be corrected. Rosa Harris has been named Director of Tourism of the Year.
Awesome.
At the annual Women in Caribbean Tourism Awards, which was held recently in New York. The awards, part of the Caribbean Tourism Organization, or CTO's Caribbean Week, held between the 1st and 5th of June, recognizes the work done by women in tourism across the Caribbean and beyond. In a statement on social media, Cayman's own Department of Tourism said these awards recognize the crucial contributions of women in tourism in the Caribbean region and beyond. And her recognition is a testament to the director's visionary leadership and championing of women at all levels of tourism. The Director of Tourism of the Year award is voted on by a jury of tourism directors and recognize Ms. Harris and her work in Caribbean tourism as the immediate past chairman of the CTO's board of directors. So, congratulations.
All right.
See, there you go. Even the sound effects are in support of Miss Rosa
got
Harris
organized
here
today.
And again, we want to recognize her achievement as part of our good news for today, the 10th of June. So I think that's wonderful. And certainly, if I remember correctly, it wasn't too long ago that the now present deputy leader of the opposition, when he was Minister of Tourism, also received the prestigious award from the same organization, but he was Tourism Minister of the Year award. Obviously, having worked with Miss Harris, or Miss Harris having worked with Mr. Minister at the time, Brian, again, shows that, we got a lot of talent here in Cayman, and we want to celebrate that talent and their achievements as they happen.
Absolutely.
And certainly, not as if, I suppose we should celebrate her achievements as an individual, and then highlight the fact that also those achievements include the various championing of women in tourism, in particular, showing their value, and of course, always the upward mobility. I've said it more than once on various platforms, and this is really, a poke in the chest for us guys. Guys, we got to step up. We got more ladies going to university, more ladies continuing their education, more ladies advancing up the career ladder than us fellas, frankly. And, even for a while there, we had our female premier. So, there is no stopping it. And what that country song, that Caribbean song say? Oh, there's one day woman I got to run this country.
What's that? Is that a soca or reggae?
I don't know.
Woman, I go run this
country.
I think some kind of a
in
soca
the
thing.
21st century.
What? You're singing today, man?
That's the extent of my lyrics on that.
Stops there.
It stops there.
Okay.
Though I'm sure, like all songs, once you hear it humming a couple of bars, then it'll come to you.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So Rosa Harris, congratulations to you, my dear, my sister from another mother.
There you go.
Celebrating, of course, her recognition as Department of Tourism Director of the Year by the Caribbean Tourism Organization.
Oh, Lord.
On the not-so-good news front, we continue our regular updates as it relates to the ongoing search for journalist Andrell Harris. Again, my brother from another mother there. The search for missing Compass Media journalist was, in fact, suspended today as a result of what the Coast Guard claimed was inclement weather. A statement issued by the Cayman Islands Coast Guard about 1:10 this afternoon said, after 6 days of tireless effort, the Cayman Islands Coast Guard has made the difficult decision to suspend the search and recovery operation for Andrell Harris as worsening weather conditions make it unsafe to continue at this time. The Coast Guard said it would assess conditions on Wednesday to determine whether the search would continue. So that is where we are. Also, the police issued their own press statement, basically dispelling or seeking to dispel some of the rumors and speculation that have been appearing on social media channels. They wrote, the RCIPS appreciates the emotional impact this matter is having on the family and the wider community, and request that persons be considerate and refrain from innuendo, rumor, particularly with online activity, the press statement said. Now, yesterday when I raised this point, I alluded to the fact that what I saw on social media over the weekend referenced what appeared to be a letter from someone claiming to be Mr. Harris's mother. And, of course, the statements contained in that letter were not flattering towards the authorities or those perhaps involved in the search. And quite in fact, one might say they were contradictory in terms of what she and the family were experiencing as compared to what the various press releases have indicated from the RCIPS and others. But again, well, first of all, I note that the press release issued today did not necessarily speak specifically to that. So again, we still have no further confirmation as to whether or not the letter was in fact penned by Mr. Harris's mother or not. And as such, until we have such confirmation, we won't read it again today. But there was no mention of it in the RCI press release other than to suggest, I guess, package it in to the rumor and speculation that sometimes, unfortunately, abounds in these situations. It's not the first time that rumor and speculation has been rife, certainly on issues that are high on emotional content, as is this case. Missing one of our own is a significant event, and we just urge members of the public to continue to lift up Mr. Harris and his family in your prayers, praying for a miracle, really, that the Lord will deliver Mr. Harris back to us safe and sound. But in the meantime, appreciate that, the circumstances are hard enough as it is for the parents, other than, of course, adding to that by reading negative comments or otherwise on social media. It's just like, again, sort of turning the knife even further in their hearts, and that's not something we want to do.
Yeah, definitely agree with you on that one.
Yeah, no, indeed. So again, we wait to hear from the officials as to whether or not the search for Mr. Harris will continue during the rest of the week. But until the weather calms down, it is what it is. I think.
So how many days it is now? 6 days?
6 days. I think he was last seen. Well, 6. Yeah, today would be 7 days. He was last seen at 9:30 p.m. Tuesday last week on Pedro Castle Road, and there has been no sightings of him since that time. So it is unfortunate. Also, yesterday we noted that the police obviously updated their level of search, moving away from search to more now from moving away from search and rescue to now a search and recovery effort, suggesting that the outlook isn't promising in terms of finding Mr. Harris alive. But again, that is what man thinks. God's mind is above that, and we remain hopeful and prayerful that there is still some good news to be delivered to the family in particular, and then the wider Cayman Islands. Praying for a miracle is what we are doing. So yeah, that's what we have. Yeah. We talked about the new appointments. There was a message today, I think, picked up by the Caymanian Times in honor of World Environment Day, coming from the Minister of Sustainability, the Honorable Catherine Ebanks Wilkes. I'm trying to just see what, it is a rather lengthy statement, so not having had the chance to review it and pull out excerpts of it, I won't read it, but if you are interested in hearing what the minister had to say in recognition of World Environment Day, you can check out www.caymantimes.ky. A little shameless plug for our brethren over there. Got to support our fellow Caymanians and what they're doing, so we want to show some love.
Sorry, exactly who we're showing love for again?
The Caymanian Times. I know.
Oh, yeah.
I know what you're thinking.
No.
I know what you're thinking. No, I'm not making that stretch to that other .com address.
Just checking. Cayman Times is good.
Yeah, Cayman Times is very good.
Yeah.
Cayman Times.
But it's good people's over there, you know.
That's right.
Good people's.
Good people's over there for sure. Just quickly scanning. Yeah. Oh, yes. This is the other thing, which I guess you don't need a news report to tell you about it. But there has been an upsurge in mosquitoes over the last few weeks since the beginning of the rainy season. And I think, a subject we were discussing on this point, I actually saw a fogger truck in action after years of having not seen one. Yeah. So they are out.
Where was I?
The what my brother likes to call the Cayman Islands Air Force, i.e. the mosquito plane flying low maneuvers at treetop level. They have also been out, certainly in West Bay and Georgetown and all of the various areas in between. But yesterday, the MRCU, Mosquito Research and Control Unit, issued a press release saying that the surge in mosquitoes follows a combination of recent rainfall and higher tides, which have created ideal breeding conditions. A noticeable increase in mosquito activity is expected over the coming days, particularly in West Bay and Georgetown. In response, the unit has launched enhanced control operations across Grand Cayman. These include aerial treatments by small aircraft, as well as fogging trucks operating on the ground, especially after sunset. In addition, MRCU is carrying out thermal fogging in the dikes to help reduce the mosquito population as much as possible. And obviously, outside of the buzzing and annoying stinging action, we remind you that mosquitoes can carry diseases such as dengue, chikungunya, and Zika, but thankfully there are no reported cases of any of those major illnesses being reported here in the Cayman Islands, clearly showing once again the extreme value that the Mosquito Research and Control Unit has played throughout the years and continue to do so here in the Cayman Islands. But yeah, I was so excited. I felt like a kid at Christmas when I saw the fogging truck doing its work. And I think I saw them in the 7 Mile Beach area, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know where I saw mine, but I think it was last night. I'm thinking, now, where was that?
Yes, I know.
It's one of those moments. I know I was kind of taking a corner, and I kind of had this smell. And I'm like, what is that smell? And then it hit me.
Then it hit you, right? Like,
and I said, yeah, okay.
I know what that is.
I know what that is.
After I'm done here, I'm going to the gas station and sit down and
inhale
monoxide
from a bus.
I can't escape the irony of it all. All of these things were a big deal when we were growing up. Again, when we were little bitty as a country, we also played with toys that had lead paint in it. You know, as we say jokingly, but absolutely serious.
I had my Tonka truck.
We drank from a garden hose outside, and none of it killed us. Today, all of these things, you'd swear, you know, it's the end of the world. It's the plague that's going to kill everyone. Protect your children from these things.
Nobody even goes outdoors nowadays.
I know. Nobody even does go outside. I talked to a parent, a mother, as a matter of fact, who's in our same age demographic, which is to say old, i.e. we're old. She's not, but we are. And, you know, she's saying, you know, the current generation are soft. They just aren't built as tough as we were. And again, a lot of that had to do with those MRCU fumes and gas station fumes. And
well, speaking of that, I think everything now is getting soft, to use that word.
Yeah.
You know, by the way, just to give you an example, I built a structure. Let's just generalize it that way. And I remember putting air conditioned units in the structure, right?
Yeah.
These things lasted from, if I get the time right, installation around 1999 until about 2023, 2024. Can you believe that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yet, you build another place and you put in an AC unit, and if you get 3 years out of it, you're lucky.
Yeah.
So it's fair to say, Mr. Harris, whether it's bunks and baby boys, girls, whatever it is, it's like they just don't make them the way they used to.
No, they certainly
Apparently
do not.
not.
They certainly do not. 52 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock. Let me be precise. Is the time in studios, and the phone lines are open at 745-2626 on this otherwise open mic Tuesday. But adding to the rather distinguishing nature of today, it's not just Super Tuesday in the month of June, but it is the 4th birthday that we are celebrating for our new show, Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio. Again, we certainly want to express our thanks to Bobo 103.1 FM for their confidence in us as an entity and bringing us on board to be one of their, I dare say, anchor talk shows here in the evening. But as always, all credit, all praise, first of all, is due to the Almighty God for bringing us here together, for reconnecting my colleague and I after, far too long of a hiatus.
Yeah. I don't even know how long that was.
I don't know how long it was, but I tell you what, working with you again was as if zero time passed whatsoever. We just found that groove almost overnight, and again, lightning in the bottle struck twice.
And somebody picked it up a couple of years later, blew it off.
Some of the dust.
Off the dust off. It had
Right.
it was perfect.
It was.
Still works.
It was indeed. We do have a number of interesting things in the headlines that I think are worth, acknowledging. And this next one is really, an example of what happens in the absence of leadership. I'm just going to call a spade a spade.
Oh, Lord.
When we look at how the fortunes of one key government agency goes from fortune to misfortune. In the headlines of the Cayman Independent today, we see a title, HSA finances declined in post-COVID period. The Health Services Authority financial position swung from an $8 million profit in 2021 to a $7 million loss by 2023. The deteriorating financial position emerged during Finance Committee proceedings held last Friday. The MP for Boddentown West and former Minister of Finance Christopher Saunders discussed data showing HSA's financial trajectory and questioned the sustainability of current healthcare spending patterns. In 2020, the organization recorded a net income of $1.2 million. This increased to an $8 million profit in 2021 before declining to a net loss of $5.2 million in 2022 and a further $7 million loss in 2023. A number, I won't bore you with the specifics in terms of the various spending exercises that were occurred, but I will state and go on record, I mean, we saw this just like football, just like the conversation of football, and we discovered on Friday that the missing element, well, one of the missing elements behind why Cayman has not really achieved its potential success, what it is capable of achieving at the regional and international level, is because there has been an absence of leadership, somebody taking ownership, arguably at championing, exactly, arguably at the ministerial level vis-a-vis the Minister of Sport. And again, we know the Jeff Webb FIFA CONCACAF situation. For a while there, football was a hot potato in this country. Nobody wanted to touch it. The government withdrew their support. FIFA withdrew their support.
It was the ugly duckling for a while, Austin. No one even wanted to look at it.
Nobody even wanted to touch it. So we had to get through that hump. Certainly, we elected new leadership. And, again, by all indications, they're working hard and doing the best that they can. And we are hoping to have some of that, members of that leadership.
I think what you're trying to say is that web of excuses should be over now.
That web, thank you. That web of excuses and glittering generalities
You're welcome.
should be over now.
Yeah.
But we also, and again, don't take my word for it. If you're bored, do the research without the $100 paycheck. That says, look at some of the parliamentary debates over the previous 4 years. And at the time, we had a minister who took the shaggy approach. It wasn't me. There was no responsibility from the minister at the time, always, willing to throw blame on, administrative staff, operational staff, again, highlighting the apparently the wide delta between the civil service and the policy side. If anything, do we and have we or can we measure the success of one administration to the next? Very clearly, that hands-off approach, that absence of direct leadership does have consequences. And I just say that to say that, there are consequences for every action is equal and opposite reaction. You can do nothing or you can attempt to do something, but there are consequences in either. And certainly, by taking your finger, if you will, off the pulse, pardon the pun, of the Health Services Authority, we see how spending can just run off the tracks. And that was highlighted by MP Chris Saunders on Friday. And I just highlighted because it shows that, in 2021, the final year of an administration that one of us was a part of, we were in the black. And then just 4 short years later, we find ourselves again in the red. And we can only blame the absence of leadership on that.
It's finally good to hear the black getting a good name, though.
Yes,
that's
the
about the
red
only.
is all of a sudden the enemy.
That's the only place that happens.
You got Indians in the corner going, what do we do? What do we do? You pushed us off on the reservations. Now we're the bad guy all over again.
Oh, say it again. We're in the black.
We're in the black.
All I can say is on the political side, it is a sad reality that if you look at the.
Hold that pin. We got to come back. We're going to go off to the news and Ellio's comments when we come back right here at Straight Talk.
Bobo.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here. More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
The vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. The BBC is the world's most trusted news source. And Bobo 103.1 is where you'll find the BBC World Service.
BBC News.
The world news from the BBC.
And the home of Cayman's most listened to top shows.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth.
And welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Across Cayman, on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority. At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands. Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
On the BBC. BBC News with Sue Montgomery. The American ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, has described as shocking the decision by Britain, Norway, Australia, Canada and New Zealand to sanction 2 far-right Israeli ministers. He described the move as an incredible overreach by countries presumed to be allies. Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich face an immediate asset freeze and travel ban over accusations of inciting extremist settler violence in the occupied West Bank. Sebastian Usher is in Jerusalem.
We dealt with the Pharaoh, we can deal with Starmer, Itamar Ben-Gvir has said, referring to the British Prime Minister. As for Bezalel Smotrich, he said the sanctions had been imposed on him because he was trying to prevent the establishment of a Palestinian state. Both men are seen by many in Israel as extremists who've been allowed to hold sway in the government in order to keep Benjamin Netanyahu in power. But even a powerful political opponent of theirs, Benny Gantz, has described the sanctions as a bad message to the entire world. The Foreign Minister Gideon Saar has called the move unacceptable.
An Israeli drone strike has killed a man and his son in southern Lebanon. The Israeli army said the dead men were a Hezbollah operative and a member of an allied group who were involved in handling Hezbollah weapons and monitoring Israeli troops in the area. President Trump has said the National Guard will remain in Los Angeles until there is no danger. Hundreds of U.S. Marines have arrived in LA under orders from Mr. Trump, who is trying to contain protests in the city against immigration raids. President Trump described the protests as a foreign invasion.
What you're witnessing in California is a full-blown assault on peace, on public order, and on national sovereignty carried out by rioters bearing foreign flags with the aim of continuing a foreign invasion of our country. We're not going to let that happen.
The governor of California said he had filed an emergency motion to block the deployment of Marines and National Guard. Hundreds of mourners have held a candlelit vigil for 10 people killed in a school shooting in the Austrian city of Graz. Local police said the perpetrator was a 21-year-old Austrian and a former pupil at the school who shot his victims, then himself. Bethany Bell reports.
In Graz, there's grief and disbelief. The shooter is believed to have acted alone. Police were called to the school mid-morning after shots rang out. The gunman used 2 legally owned weapons. The authorities said they'd found a goodbye letter to his parents, but no motive was apparent. The Austrian Chancellor Christian Stocker has declared 3 days of national mourning for what he called a very dark day.
World News from the BBC. The French Prime Minister François Bayrou has promised to ban immediately the sale of certain bladed weapons to minors after a student fatally stabbed a teaching assistant in the eastern town of Nogent. Officials said it happened as pupils' bags were being inspected at the school gate. The 14-year-old was immediately arrested. Police in Colombia say at least 4 people have been killed in a wave of bombings and shootings across the southwest of the country. Targets hit included police stations and municipal buildings. 2 of the victims were police officers. The mayor of the region's biggest city, Cali, said overnight it had returned to 1989, when the city was rife with drugs and cartel violence. There's been another exchange of prisoners of war between Ukraine and Russia, with sick and wounded former combatants being released a day after a group of those aged under 25. President Zelensky called Tuesday's swap an important humanitarian act. Ukraine says its soldiers have suffered amputations, infections and trauma. Russia's nationals, like Ukraine's, will return home for medical treatment. 70 white rhinos have been relocated from South Africa to a national park in Rwanda as part of an ambitious conservation project. Camilla Mills reports.
The trip took 2 days as the animals travelled the 3,000 kilometres, first by plane, then by road. They were transferred in 2 loads, with each rhino weighing on average over 2,000 kilograms. Rwandan officials say it was the largest ever relocation of rhinos. The animals will have a dedicated veterinary team who will closely monitor their health and behaviour for several weeks to make sure they adapt to their new environment. The relocation is part of a programme which aims to support population growth, as rhinos are at significant risk of extinction because of large-scale poaching.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM with your host, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris. And the phone lines are open on this Super Tuesday as we celebrate our 4-month birthday here on Bobo 103 and on first show of Straight Talk, having started on the 10th of February, so it's an extra special occasion for us. The phone lines are open, 745-2626, or you can reach out to us on our WhatsApp number by dialing 928 2562. And from there, either sending us a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message. Ellio, we were talking about black being the new white and red being the new enemy. Prior to the break, I'll allow you to finish your thought if you wish.
Oh, God, I don't even know where I was now, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, if you start there, it was funny, right? Because I'm saying to myself, I almost came up with a new joke right away. It's like, Mom, I'm getting into accounting. It's like, why are you getting into accounting, son? It's the only place where black is a good thing. So anyway, it's just good.
Yes.
Oh my God, black. Why, if you're black, you always get a bad rap, right?
I don't know.
I don't know. I kind of grew up with that thing, also. Don't worry about it. You're allowed to tell jokes if you're in that category, by the way.
You are. Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so
it's kind of like laughing at yourself. Then.
Yeah, so it's you can do that. I'm part of the black race. I'm allowed to get away with this.
You're kind of like coffee with just the right amount of cream.
Don't ruin it.
You're brownish.
Don't ruin it. Just let me bathe in my
light skin.
Oh Lord, just I thought I had to go ahead. So anyway, on to a more serious topic.
Damn near white. Something like that. There was something that
they used to say.
Steve McField used to say.
I heard it first yellow. From him. What's that?
Light, bright, damn near white.
Okay, well.
And again, this is
that does not surprise me.
This takes us back to the 60s in Cayman. So, I didn't invent it. I'm just selling it to you, as I say, as cheaply as I bought it. Yeah. And he only said it to me because he says that's what they used to describe, quote unquote, towners, Caymanians who lived along the bay in Georgetown. Me too.
Oh, okay.
So therefore, you are, light, bright, damn near white. You fall in that category. You're not necessarily quite yet black, and you're not quite red. So you're in the middle. You're somewhere there. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Well, moving away from color tones and back to the headlines. Yesterday, if you will recall, and if you were with us, we spoke about what we described as the rather dubious approach towards solving the 7 Mile Beach erosion situation, which of course called for some 13,000 cubic yards of sand, not Cayman sand, but imported sand to kind of look like sand.
Interjection. My apologies. But seeing as how I'm used to getting cut off, I hope you don't mind.
No, not at all.
Because we get cut off by the bell, right?
That's true.
But in this case, by the clock, I think I do recall what I was going to say. I was just going to give the reminder.
Okay.
Because of something that you said in there in terms of being held accountable, etc. That the sad reality in politics, and I've observed it, we're always happy to discuss it if you have a contrary view.
Yes.
You are under the listening public. But it seems unfortunate that persons who get elected, a lot of times, if you do nothing, you stay in office. And doing something actually causes you to lose your seat.
Ain't that the truth?
Go look at some of those with the greatest longevity and then give me their report card, and you'll probably see that for yourself. But yeah, there's a lot of topics to discuss today. Got some emails, etc. But I'm going to let you finish with that, and then I'll chime in on another one, Mr. Harris.
Absolutely. Well, as I was saying yesterday, if you will recall the conversation, it was in particular to the headline that said an environmental impact assessment is not necessary for the Marriott beach remediation issue that also addressed the whole issue of beach erosion along 7 Mile Beach. That, of course, being the decision taken by the National Conservation Council, which in and of itself was a bit of a surprise for the NCC to say there's no need for an environmental impact assessment, though in almost every other scenario, they have started with that as the basis line and then, set their requirements, from that baseline. But anyway, they said that there was no EIA needed for the Marriott and, in fact, embraced what was the Department of Environment solution, or the one put forward by the cabinet of the day, of course, referring to the previous cabinet that was led by the previous premier, the Honorable Wayne Panton, that called for, first of all, importing 13,000 cubic yards of sand from some other jurisdiction because there is no Cayman sand available, and then depositing it on the site of what used to be the Marriott Beach, and that was the solution to addressing beach erosion. That, when combined with a repositioning, if you will, of the reef balls that also have existed for some time just offshore from the Marriott Beach itself. And me questioned the effectiveness of that solution just yesterday, suggesting that it was a Band-Aid approach, making the, I guess, observation that Mother Nature in this country, again, if you've lived here for longer than 5 minutes, you will know that which Mother Nature takes away, she readily brings back on an annual cycle, with the sediment or sand sediment moving, I think it will be west to south from Northwest Point all the way down to South Sound and then flowing right back up and so on and so forth. And as long as there isn't any major impediments along the way, like, for example, the TI Treasure Island makeshift breakwater that many people argue was the first rung in standing in the way of that sedimentary movement heading further up west, but clearly not enough to make a significant impact on 7 Mile Beach, which, unlike recent years, really has always been a beautiful stretch of white sandy beaches. Now, we have had some severe storm systems, and the most recent one a few years ago was attributed to, I think, the final death knell for Marriott Beach and others, where they no longer have the Marriott Beach Resort, but more of the Marriott Yacht Club, where, again, the pool deck ends and so the water begins. But replacing the sand with imported sand is a Band-Aid approach because, it does not change the natural flow of the environment. It doesn't change the wave surge that is caused through seasonal storm patterns, which we are now in. So another major nor'wester, another major hurricane could possibly drag that imported sand right back out into open water. So whatever we spend on that solution will be literally flushed down the drain. What we suggested was a much more difficult and perhaps not as comfortable a conversation because what it could mean to properties along 7 Mile Beach that were developed years ago, 20, 25, 30 years ago, and that is addressing the setbacks, where developers are allowed to build along the coastline with a view of moving their fixed structures, their concrete and steel, which has been arguably stated as the reason for the beach erosion. Again, we forget the things we say in the past, and we also view these challenges as if they're happening to us for the first time, which, again, your guess is as good as mine as to why that phenomenon occurs. But moving the setbacks is the most practical long-term solution. And again, I use the example of just the Kimpton and the Indigo. They're Cayman's newest hotels. But you see where their footings, their superstructures, if you will, decks and pool decks and otherwise, are so much more pushed away from the general coastline. And by doing so, I believe they can pretty much enjoy a rather nice beach, sandy beach area for years and years to come. I'm no environmentalist, so I could stand to be corrected, but I don't believe I will. We read in today's news, Cayman News Service, all the same, but they pulled their commentary from a radio show that occurred yesterday. So whilst we were commenting on this yesterday evening, without knowledge, mind you, of what was going on in the other radio stations on the same day, I will point out, well, you'll see it when I read it. After years at the helm of planning, Minister J.E. Banks has finally accepted the pressing need, I didn't write this, these aren't my words, to address the massively inadequate high water mark setbacks for development in planning regulations. Before he was ousted from office, the premier of the PACT government and his colleagues, Wayne Panton, said he wanted to address the issue, but after his ouster, the project stalled. A recommendation to establish a 7 Mile Beach coastal setback reference line was supposed to go to cabinet for approval in mid-2023. However, by then, the cracks in the PACT government had become increasingly apparent, And by October, Panton was replaced by the Honorable Juliana O'Connor Connolly, and the proposal for the updated setback line on 7 Mile Beach was never acted upon. However, as he begins his second term as planning minister, the Honorable J.E. Banks said on Radio Cayman on Monday that changing the high water mark was now a priority. And he said he saw it as something that could be plucked out and worked on for a quick win instead of waiting for the completion of a new national development plan. So in the first instance, kudos and congratulations to Minister J.E. Banks for addressing what clearly, I think, and I think you would agree, is the more substantial of the solutions put forward to address this longer-term issue of beach erosion along 7 Mile Beach, and that is by addressing the setbacks that are applied to planning regulations. He also identified it as, a quick win, as we call it, low-hanging fruit, something that, can be addressed quickly without too much bureaucratic red tape. Undoubtedly, there haven't been any distinctions in terms of what that setback will be, and if that setback is, frankly, to a point that would be sufficient to act as a deterrent to beach erosion, that means some properties, arguably the Marriott, will have to tear up things like their pool deck and push it a bit further back. And, of course, that's going to carry an expense and maybe even, bring with it a few lawsuits. But it really is at the end, and this is not just a Marriott problem. We see it at Cayman Reef Resort. We see it in front of the Pines. We saw it, as we talked about yesterday, though we struggled to find the name for Coral Beach Club, Coral Bay.
We got it in the end.
Beach,
Coral
yeah.
Beach.
Yeah, Coral Beach, something like that. Coral something.
Coral Beach.
And it is aptly named because literally you step off the bar, you're on the coral. So, again, it's no longer a beach. But these are the issues that obtain on 7 Mile
I saw
Beach.
the beach. Did you see the beach?
I saw the water, and thank God it's crystal clear, so there is beach underneath it.
Saw in the past tense.
In the past tense, quite right. So I want to congratulate Minister J.E. Banks for, again, embracing perhaps what may not be the easy road, but arguably, and until the experts and the technocrats prove us wrong, what I believe to be the more relevant solution, long-term relevant solution to this whole beach erosion situation. Ellio, your thoughts? You're awfully quiet in the corner.
No, well, just listening to you doing an excellent delivery. And I would like to say, first of all, that I like the context that you read in the beginning. And I don't recall hearing that yesterday in terms of the decision that was initially made about the sand. The commingling of these sands. What was the little bit of a preface to that?
You really don't listen to a word that goes.
No, I heard it. I heard it, but I don't want to get it wrong. I want you to say it again for the public. It's important.
Well, basically,
it's the part about just for clarity. It's the part about saying what was happening in term prior with the premier, et cetera, and why a particular decision was made.
Oh,
the very first part that you read.
Oh, the very first part to suggest that before he was ousted as premier, he had made the recommendation.
When you initially started, you talk about NCC making their decision.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And there was a context there.
Yes, well, it started with the context that perhaps out of the blue, and this was the part that sort of jumped off the page at me when I read the article yesterday, was that the NCC suggested that there was no need for an environmental impact assessment to address the Marriott beach erosion situation on the basis that the Department of Environment is knowledgeable enough and there is sufficient information enough that exists already to identify the nature and scope of the problem and is not necessary. And I just added the caveat that I found that interesting when in previous discussions, particularly decisions emanating from the National Conservation Council, the baseline or starting point of any of their otherwise recommendations oftentimes began with the need for an environmental impact assessment. And I just noted that as kind of curiously odd. That's all.
Yeah. Well, again,
Another one?
I think in terms of consideration of the appointment of NCC and the fact that you made the reference in that particular context as to the persons who were involved in terms of, how can I put it, pointing things in a specific direction, then perhaps we can now logically conclude
the private island notion,
why that particular decision was made.
Yes.
So, I think
you should expand on that point, though, because again,
well, this is why I said I wanted you to read it.
We assume people can read between the lines, but as we see, again, to your original point, why voters seem to elect those persons that do the least amount of work, and those that do the most amount of work usually are on the sidelines. Clearly, I think it's important that we assume people can read between the lines, but maybe not. We need to, write it down as if you're a 5-year-old in crayons, in color.
Yeah.
Very clear.
I agree. Well, in terms of that particular one, it would seem to me that you would have had the recent appointment by the NCC, again, by the new government, because what happened is that you had NCC original members that were removed. And then they were replaced by some of the older guards, some of the politicians there by the UPM government. Of course, that created a big piece of chaos. And we had individuals that wanted to take the government to court. The new government is elected, and the new government appoints other members. And again, my colleague, as I understood it, read something earlier on that gave the context in terms of, well, I guess yesterday, he couldn't quite figure out why it was that the NCC was taking somewhat of a different stance in terms of its decision-making with respect to EIAs. But the contextual part that he read today in terms of what had happened or occurred under the previous premier, Mr. Wayne Panton, or the Honorable Wayne Panton, and the directions from DOE, I think lends a lot of clarity as to why the newly appointed committee would now say that there's no need for an EIA. Again, whether you want to boil that down to just politics or you want to boil that down to the environment, it is something worthy to note. Mm-hmm. But I definitely want to join you in saying that I think from off the surface, and again, I don't claim to be the expert in terms of having all the information in front of me, but my half-day schooling on Fridays in good common sense would tell me that, the decision being made by the minister in terms of looking at the setbacks, I think is a good one. I believe many politicians that I have spoken to, as well as good common sense prevails, that maybe we as a country made a mistake by probably allowing people to build on the beach in the first place. And where that may not necessarily be able to change anytime soon, having even further setbacks, I think, could only be a good thing in terms of helping to avoid some of the beach erosion that is taking place. So kudos again to the minister for that. I think also important to note there is he's talking about, and he makes a point that I've made here on this program as well, he talks about doing certain things in the absence of having a national development plan. And this, you'll recall, was a discussion that we had. I said, yeah, I'd love to see a national development plan too, but it doesn't remove good common sense. Like, nobody has to tell me I can't pick up this garbage can until I get a national development plan. And I give that extreme example to prove in this particular case, do you really need to wait 3-4 years or whatever to get a specific plan? They said, no, I think moving these setbacks can only be a good thing.
Yeah.
And, so again, kudos to him for making those decisions. And I just stress again, I want to say it because it is very, very important in terms of how people vote. Bear in mind that when a politician takes a decision, it happens with all of us, but we see it definitely with politicians. When they take a decision, you split the room. And let me again simplify this as you asked earlier to paint it with some crayons.
Please.
If you sit around the table and there's 3 people there with you, and there's a car that needs to be painted. This is a political example. And I've seen them do this, right?
If you do the Bayesian axe, then that would just,
I'll just kill it. I'll throw it in. So you have 3 people sitting there. The job is to paint the car. You got me going on with this. Listen, quiet now. So you got this car that needs to be painted. This is the objective. And here's the politician in the room with 3 persons. And one guy says, I think you should paint the car red. Now, if you really want to be a politician and get elected, the guy will say, I think you should paint the car red. And you go, oh my, what a brilliant idea. You're really on to something there.
By Jove, you've got it.
I think you're on to something, buddy. And then the next guy right afterwards, and I've actually seen this, the next guy afterwards will say, no, I think blue would be better. And then you look at him with a really straight face and say, you've got a lot of merit in that one. And then the next guy right after that will say, I honestly believe it should be green. And then you go with a sober face, full of sobriety. And you look at him and you say, yeah, you're really making a good point. That is something that truly needs to be considered. And then you walk away and you do nothing. And here's what really happens in reality. The red, blue, and the green suggesters actually like you because you had something wonderful to say to all of them, and then you haven't painted the car, which means you haven't made a decision, and they all like you and you get their vote. But the guy that stands in that room and says, I heard the red, I heard the blue, I heard the green, but to be honest with you, I'm going to go with the red. You're going to pee off the guy that recommended green, you're going to pee off the guy that recommended blue, and the only one happy in the room, probably only for a while, is the guy that suggested red. So you lose. And if you go and you search the history books, I think that that's what you will find. This is why some of the longest serving members of Parliament have always been the no-doers, the do-nothing. And it actually helps you maintain your seat. Go check it out, see if I'm proven right or wrong. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, so if you're finished with that particular one, Mr. Harris, or you still got more to say on that?
I just want to add one other aspect of it, but unfortunately, as usual, the clock is against us on this point. But I'll try to make it quick.
Yeah.
Whilst, again, we commend the minister for taking what I think is the more substantial approach, and despite whatever the National Conservation Council or the Department of Environment recommends, we have seen time and time again where the CPA seeks to enact its own discretion and allow these developments to take place despite the regulations. We're going to pause, take a short break, but there's more Straight Talk now.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo 103.1.
With you in mind, we have your style. Find what you need down every aisle. You want saving, selection, and quality. That's why we're your home store. Home store. The way to make a home. The way to make a home.
We all work hard to one day buy the house of our dreams. Why wouldn't you protect it? With Saxon, you now have the option to get a home insurance quote online. Avoid the waiting in lines and the traffic. Simply log on to saxon.ky and click to get a quote to get started. At Saxon, we pride ourselves on providing our customers with excellent customer service and convenience. So what are you waiting for? Visit saxon.ky today from the comfort of your home or office to get your quote and protect the things you love. Saxon. Smart Insurance.
Visit Healthcare Pharmacy's second location in Governor Square, servicing West Bay and the 7 Mile Beach Corridor with a care and professionalism you have come to expect from Healthcare Pharmacy. Healthcare Pharmacy in Governor Square also stocks a huge selection of Hallmark and shoebox greeting cards, vitamins, sunblock, last minute, and everyday needs. To refill and transfer your prescriptions, simply WhatsApp 329-7313 or visit healthcarepharmacy.ky or drop by Monday to Saturday from 9 till 6.
At Polar Bear Air Conditioning, we believe in helping you to avoid costly mistakes and replacements. That's why we offer a quarterly maintenance program at a discounted price. You'll receive a 10% discount on all repairs, accessories, and services. Priority front-of-the-line customer status, reminders of your service, and no overtime rate for after-hours calls. Why not save money and avoid hassle with Polar Bear Air Conditioning? Need service now? Book our AC special for just $99. Book the next available technician at polarbear.ky. That's polarbear.ky.
K-Man, Units is here, the island's newest move-in and storage solution. Our robot delivery system allows you to put your unit almost anywhere while providing level loading, uploading, and minimizing shifting. What's even better, no time constraints. Pack at your own pace for move-in or store as long as you need. Short-term or long-term, at the home or on the job site. Units, fast, safe, and secure. Check us out at units.ky and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
When it comes to weekly meal prep, I trust Kirk Market to provide the best value for quality proteins. The butchers at Kirk Market are super helpful. They always slice my steaks perfectly. Kirk Market has everything I need for healthy and flavorful protein-packed meals. From lean cuts of CAB choice beef, tender CAB prime beef, the juiciest pork, and all-natural hormone-free poultry, to their seafood section with everything from fresh local snapper to omega-3 rich salmon. I choose Kirk Market for the highest quality proteins to support my healthy lifestyle. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and discover a world of choice.
Across Cayman on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority, committed to caring for you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, Cayman, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM with your host, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris, as we continue our discussion on this, our Super Tuesday here on the program. It is an open mic Tuesday, the phone line to call into the studio and add your voice to our ongoing conversation, either to make a statement or ask a question. You can call us at 745-2626, or if you wish to utilize our version of the 1-800 number, you can call our WhatsApp number, 928-2562, and from there you can either leave us a WhatsApp audio note or share a WhatsApp text message. In any event, your views, comments, and opinions will be added to our conversation. We were just discussing prior to the break, Ellio, as you know, but certainly to those listeners who may just be joining us, what was yesterday in the headlines discussed as what we thought was the Band-Aid solution to beach erosion, which involved the importation of 13,000 cubic yards of sand from somewhere else in the Caribbean to match 7 Mile Beach sand to deposit on Marriott Beach, only to have Mother Nature literally pull that out again at the next big major storm, literally flushing that investment down the toilet. Well, I wouldn't call 7 Mile Beach the toilet, but you get the analogy. Whereas today we read in the pages of the Cayman News Service following a interview in which the President Minister of Planning, the Honorable J.E. Banks, was on Radio Cayman on just yesterday, saying that his approach will be addressing what might be the more significant and arguably longer-term solution to this issue, and that is not exporting and depositing sand, but moving these structures further off the coastline so that we can have a more sustainable beach that is less likely impacted by Mother Nature and beach erosion. Now, whilst we agree with this, while we again continue so far to commend the government for taking positive and necessary action, certainly not shying away from some of the difficult decisions. Arguably, we say that these conversations don't, exist in a vacuum. In many cases, these discussions are not new, so we are certainly aware of what some of the proposed solutions were or have been put forward. But oftentimes, we don't have the testicular fortitude or the confidence in ourselves to just act on those decisions, recognizing that, yes, in everything, you're not going to win support from everybody. There's no such thing as majority support in every decision you make. But in this case, the Honorable Minister taking what I think is the more substantial approach, and that is addressing the high water mark current location, and more importantly, where developers are allowed to lay concrete structures along our shoreline, which has been proven to be the reason why our beach is eroding as quickly as it does. Now, the linchpin, or if you would call it the challenge to this proposal, is that on the one hand, you've got ministerial policy. On the other hand, you've got the National Conservation Council, obviously setting guidelines, arguably on a whim and a fancy. Again, sometimes you need an EIA, sometimes you don't need an EIA. And again, I suppose to my colleague's point, it depends really who's behind the initiative to give you an idea clearly who's calling the shots in this country. But in terms of the developers, where do the developers get their guidance from? Well, the developers get their guidance from the Central Planning Authority. And the article makes the point, and I'll just quote the article exactly. It says, to make matters worse, time and time again, the CPA has used its own discretion to waive the already insufficient high water mark setbacks at the request of developers, further compounding the ongoing erosion problems without taking into account the rising sea levels and changing weather patterns as a result of climate change. So we know, if we take the final aspect of that paragraph first, we know that the seasonal weather patterns, Mother Nature, hurricanes, nor'westers, the like, deal a heavy blow to coastal erosion. But we also know Mother Nature is a fantastic machine in which when she takes away, she gives back. It happens seasonally in the Cayman Islands, from boggy sand all the way down to Treasure Island Beach. Sometimes the sand goes out and Mother Nature brings that sand back in at cycles. It happens all the time. Last year, Royal Palms and Coral Beach never had a beach, but Royal Palms had no beach. Cayman Reef Resort had no beach. The Marriott had even less of a beach. But then just now, if you looked in the last few days, taking a walk on 7 Mile Beach, we have glorious beach on 7 Mile Beach. So Mother Nature gives and she takes away. But there are unignorable climate change impacts that we cannot ignore. They're going to keep happening. But here we have a minister saying we're going to set a policy. We're going to address the high water mark with a view of further setbacks. And you have the National Conservation Council. I don't know whether they agree or not, but they seem to agree with the Department of Environment. But more importantly, you have a CPA that seems to be, again, just on the merit of this article, appear to be acting in a world of their own, using their own discretion to say, well, I know what the law says, but I hear what the developers are arguing for, and maybe this development's important for the economy, so we're going to ignore the law requirement, and we're going to allow developers to build pretty much anywhere they damn well please. So, again, we have to ask ourselves the question, are we literally spinning our wheels in the mud here, recognizing what the problem is, commending the government for taking the bold approach to change the high water mark setbacks, which will have a pecuniary impact on those developments who are already on the coastline. Maybe that's a challenge that we address, around the next bend. But it is really the only substantial solution to ensure that we aren't repeating this problem over and over again. But to make matters worse, to quote the Cayman News Service, you have another government-appointed entity fundamentally acting on its own accord, cutting you off the knees. So cutting you off at the knees on this subject. Again, I can only sell it to you as cheaply as I bought it, but these are the realities that obtain in Cayman, which makes people say, oftentimes, coining the phrase, Cayman is not a real place.
Well, an interesting thing, and again, just to throw it out from an environmental perspective, and let me share the childhood part. I do not recall, it's not impossible, but I do not recall growing up and seeing scorpions.
Yeah.
Okay? I just want you to know, I never saw a scorpion. Saw centipedes, but never saw a scorpion. Now the Cayman Islands is totally infested with scorpions.
Yep.
And I would like to think for a moment that, well, how did those scorpions get here? There's a million different ways they could have gotten here, but one of those is possibly aggregate that's brought here from other countries. Another one is trees and plants and stuff that are brought here from other countries. And I wonder if you end up with something similar, for example, even with respect to the beach. You know what a skillepot is, Austin? When we were kids.
I've heard the phrase, but I
when we were kids, we used to run our feet through the sand, and then out would come something that looked like a white cockroach.
Okay.
It's called a skillepot.
Oh, so
that's what it is.
Sand leaves, sand
sand
fleas.
No, it's pretty big. It's like a roach, right?
Okay.
And I can only tell you what we called it, skillepot.
Skillepot. Okay.
Now, where we got that name, I have no idea. Somebody told it to me, and I repeat it.
Fair enough.
But the point
as cheaply as you bought it.
The point I'm making there is, if you go on the beach, you don't see anything there. They're not above the sand, but you go move your feet through the sand, and then they'll come out.
Yeah.
And I'm simply saying that, you've seen this happen with aggregate on land, and you've seen this happen with the importation of plant and vegetable matter, whatever, in terms of what I believe has happened in terms of scorpions. And I can tell you, Cayman has a major problem right now in terms of scorpions. We also had this some years ago when we had the big issue about the lionfish, right? And where did this lionfish come and how did it get here and how quickly they were multiplying? And we can argue something similar with the green iguanas, but I just wonder what you get. Is there a similar situation in terms of certain life that trenches itself in the ground in terms of the particular beach sand that you're going to be bringing? And when you commingle the two of them, what you're actually going to end up with? Are you going to end up with something new? Just something to consider.
Yeah.
But you said that DOE has given their approval, and you would have gotten a similar direction being pointed by the prior premier, the Honorable Wayne Panton. So again, there was a synergy of thoughts, if you like, between the premier and DOE, and now the newly appointed NCC approves that direction.
Right.
So again, there's no surprise there. At least I have greater clarity today than I did yesterday on that particular issue. And now we're going to move forward with it. But I think not being an environmentalist, that would be something I would be interested to find out. What potential are we going to have there? Yep. So I don't know now, Mr. Harris. I did have people sending me some stuff here, but this looks like it's a little bit too much to digest on the air. So I'll probably have to ask their forgiveness, and we'll have to have a look at it later on when I have time to listen and read all of this and then actually touch on it a different day, although I believe it's somewhat related to the topic at hand. I do want to raise this issue, and I touched on it before. How much time before we go to a break, Mr. Harris?
Got a whole 15 minutes, but I do have a caller on the line. Can we just
great.
Take that first?
That's fine.
Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you all doing today?
Good.
Thank you. And how are you?
Not too bad. This is Jordan Rivers here. No gripes or complaints today. Just want to give a public congratulations to the minister for actually taking bold steps in order to begin the remediation of our shorelines, because that is super important. But I guess more so pressingly, just want to let you guys know I miss being in the studio with you guys.
We miss having you around too. Believe me.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got to try to see if we can bring you back in here and get some post-election discussions. We haven't forgot you.
No, I know you haven't. I'm glad you haven't either. But there is plenty of things to discuss, and we still got well over 3 years of observations to be taking place and a lot of work to get done.
Well, let me encourage you not to be quiet, because I thought you did a really good job your first showing in the last election, and I am not, well, put it this way, I expect to see you 4 years from now, again, vying for a seat, because you did a really good job.
I think it's safe to say, I think I can safely bet that and say it publicly that I will be back in 4 years' time.
Beautiful.
I have not quit, and I continue to try and get stronger and be more active in the community and be more active across the country, you know?
All right. Well, you got a platform here if you want to, voice your concerns, or as we say in this part of the world, get it off your chest.
I appreciate that. You gentlemen have a wonderful day, and like I said, I want to publicly congratulate the minister for taking a bold action. To Ellio's point, it seems that we have a fairly nasty habit here of having what you would call paid kiss-ups. Well, it's about time we start electing persons that actually have a thought process and a backbone. Whether you like the decision or not, we don't elect persons to please everybody. We elect leaders of this country. And I think as we grow and mature as a populace and we get further down the line, that becomes a much more prevalent thing in this country. We have many new individuals that have been elected this past cycle. And I'm hoping, as we can see already, a lot of them are taking very big steps in their first go-about. So I'm very happy to see that.
Absolutely. Jordan, nice to hear from you. Feel free to pick up the phone whenever you want.
Yes.
And we love hearing from you. And we'll definitely try to see if we can get you back here in the studio.
No, 100%. Jordan Rivers there, former political candidate in the constituency. I believe it was West Bay West. West Bay West. Thank you very much. I was going to say something.
Oh, no, West Bay North.
I was going to say West Bay North.
You're right.
West Bay North.
West Bay North.
There you go. But really enjoyed chatting with him. Had the chance to chat with him at least once a week for about 4, maybe 5 weeks there. And whilst, again, I guess the numbers didn't reflect in his direction at the polls, I still think he's got an excellent head on his shoulder. He's got a lot of viewpoints on the issues that matter. And what was that line he coined? He's an environmental...
But not a zealot or something?
Yeah, he's an environmental activist, but he's not an environmental zealot. And I think that's, an easy way of saying he's a realist.
Well, speaking of that, I hope the government, and considering it's a coalition, hopefully the government will employ him and his skills in some way or another.
I would hope so as well.
Yeah.
And certainly, again, Jordan, if you still got your ears on, you say you're going to be there 4 years from now. We believe it. I think there's no reason why you shouldn't be. Let me just encouraging you to, stay relevant, stay in the public domain, both on the ground, working in your community. And, we're family. So, we got a platform right here waiting on you, as Ellio stated. Sorry, colleague, you were about to express something.
No, I just want to get on to this. Persons have heard me discussing this whole issue about the banks and, I guess the banks general and some of the nonsense that I see going on here from people asking for, you need 2 IDs and your ID is expired. And you kind of start wondering, where in the world are all these rules coming out from? And I know we're very quick as this peaceful society. We just kind of accept anything. Yeah. Well, I keep saying, listen, you're here to ask me for an official ID, not if I can drive or not if I can travel. But if someone decided to write in confidentiality, of course, and they wrote in, I'll take my time and read through this because I think it is important. And forgive me, I'm not the best reader. I should make my colleague Austin do it. He's much better at that than me. I don't know why. That topic about the banks and their compliance requirements is quite concerning, since no one seems to know where their instructions originate. Everyone who one would think has controlled the banks deny any culpability. Why do they require 2 government IDs? One bank even has a sign up saying they will soon be not accepting cash, as if the legal tender provision in law does not exist. Even government departments no longer accept the CI dollar. There is a lot more. There is no recourse, as everyone thinks it is not fair, but no one addresses the extent to which the general public is bullied and harassed over nonsense. Do the banks have any authority to require letters of good character from people who have just arrived on Cayman in order to open a bank account? It is an exercise in stupidity, since the recommender does not have any idea of the character of the potential client, and if the letter came from his home country. The bank does not know who wrote it. That is the reason why there are so many unbanked people in Cayman who live hand to mouth after they send all their money back home. I do not believe that the various ministers of finance have paid any attention to the daily hardship these banks and financial institutions have put on our population, while account holders in American banks seem to sail past these regulations that may not even exist. If one asks the local authorities whether they have mandated these onerous rules for the banks to follow, and the answer was not forthcoming, the banks in particular have weaponized compliance to the point of being ridiculous, and they use it when they have a client who asks too many questions or is not easy to intimidate, or someone who they dislike for various reasons. There is a currency law that defines legal tender, yet the CIG itself, that is Cayman Islands government itself, refuses cash. Sinico refuses cash. My bank has signed up advising soon that they will be cashless. Even talk show hosts espouse the virtues of a cashless society, despite what is written in the law and what is the right of everyone to use legal tender. There is no regard for older people who have no idea how to pay a bill from their cell phone or how to remember all of the codes and passwords that are required to be cashless. What is lacking is the oversight the Ministry of Finance should be ensuring is happening with the various institutions that operate under their control. I believe it would be a good idea for Straight Talk to interview the Minister and the Monetary Authority on these topics, since it is increasing the level of local stress on this population, while dollar empty buildings are put up without any problems with the banks. There is an increased incidence of stress and even suicide in our small population, and it seems that the government is a major contributor to that situation. The boards that are appointed are entrenched into the system now, political cronies whose only talent is to manipulate the system to enrich their lawyer friends and themselves. Very sad. But, you know, I want
Very powerful comments as well on a variety of subjects, not least of which this cashless society.
Absolutely. And I remember having this discussion when I went to a particular bank to which I deal with, you know, and you have to ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, we're voting on referendums. We vote in terms of, you know, who's going to get elected. There's a myriad of things that we got to get public consultation. Did anyone at any point in time consult you on carrying the Cayman Islands to a cashless society?
No.
Well, apparently, you ask yourself, well, where did this come from? When did this happen? Apparently, the Cayman Islands Bankers Association all got together and decided that they're going to move the country forward in a cashless society direction. I stand to be corrected, would love to hear from them. But there's a lot of different implications that comes with that. Not to mention, I want to get a couple of the applications that you have to sign. One of them actually gives you a checkbox in terms of your obligations to the United States of America. And I was saying this, the United States of America, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But bottom line of it is, ladies and gentlemen, we are being moved in a cashless society direction. You went in the banks, you see where they're reducing tellers, again, because you go deal with the ATM machine. You know, you're doing deposits there. And we're turning into a cashless society, but no one has ever asked for your input. No one's asked, is that the direction that you want to go to? Mm-hmm. And I raise it, amongst other things, as a serious concern that for those, whoever it is that seeks to control you, becomes very easy to shut you out of an economy if it's completely cashless. You know, it's not like you're going to be having it under your mattress. You have to work through the institutions, and I just raise it along with a lot of the silly rules that you hear, and I understand and appreciate some of the things that we need to do for the anti-money laundering and anti-terrorism financing, etc. But it just really gets to a point sometime of complete ridiculousness, as I mentioned even some days ago, where I'm going into a bank, and of course, I had to have provided proof of, what's it called? Proof of funds or source of funds when I deposited the money. Now I have to produce a source of funds to get it out. It's right. Like, come on. It was my money. It was legitimate when I put it there. I just like to get back my money.
Indeed.
And you just see a lot of this nonsense. And I really want us as, I mean, I appreciate that we're all, you know, there's a level of docility that exists in this environment to which I cannot explain. But at some point in time, we really need to start making a little bit more noise and saying, can you stop the nonsense? You know, because why are you killing me here? I can tell you that when I was in the United States, I remember going to Bank America, to open an account. And Austin, it was show an ID, sign here, and I deposited my $200 in the ATM same day. Couple of minutes. There is no way you're going to do that in Cayman.
Right.
It is impossible. And this goes again to even some of the points that Mr. Tony Travers raised when he came on the program. We have completely constipated the system. You know, if it's a heart system, if it's a vascular system, we're to the point very near a heart attack right now because of how we have put so much red tape in all of this system that we call banking. And I just think it's getting totally ridiculous. I mean, you told me some stuff today. There's other people telling you different things, and you're saying, where are all these rules coming from, and where are the authorities? Where are the people that we're electing to say, hold on, you're killing people here? And on the general rule about banking, let me just talk about even with respect to people with mortgages. You can't talk to anybody locally now. You know, I got to go to Trinidad. Yeah. Oh, yeah, call Bahamas.
Yeah.
It's like, how is this beneficial to Cayman? And who's watching this?
Yes.
You know, what does a guy in Bahamas care about you, Austin Harris? Couldn't give a...
More to the point, what does he know about you?
He doesn't know about you, and he doesn't care about you because he doesn't know you.
Right.
You know, you're just a number on the screen. Screw you. You're out of here.
Right.
You know, where if that's Ellio, it's going to be, come on, that's Austin. You know, Austin's got a son, and come on, let's work with the guy.
That's right.
You know?
Well, you know, the writer raised a number of key points. And first of all, this move towards a cashless society is very much driven by the bank and the Bankers Association. But to your point, and to the wider issue, who's been discussing this? Where has been the public consultation? What has been the feedback from Joe Public, the end users of Cayman's banking services, outside, of course, the gazillions that, flow through the country on the commercial investment side? That's the first issue. The second issue is we see what clearly, anyone who visits retail banking nowadays will see that the goal of the banks has been to do away with that traditional frontline tellers, encouraging persons to use greater online services. You know,
At their cost.
You can't pay your credit card, for example, was the last time I remember. You could walk into the bank and make a credit payment to a teller for your credit card, which, by the way, is with that bank. Now they won't accept that payment. You have to do it online. And if you don't make those payments, then your credit card's in arrears, and they're going to send you a letter. But arguably, I believe the frequency of cash-based transactions was brought about as a result of these ridiculous policies that the banks implemented, saying, well, you can't cash your paycheck, which is drawn on this bank, unless you yourself have an account at this bank. And of course, you remember when that policy was first introduced and the upheaval that came about from the public from it. Arguably, persons now, employers in particular, to avoid that, if you're a construction company or, you know, you can call it white collar, blue collar, or whatever, but instead of paying in a check, they give you cash because cash is legal tender. You can spend that immediately, whether you have it should be, whether you have a bank account or not. But certainly if you're making more than $1,000, nobody wants to walk around with, you know, their entire paycheck in their pocket or under their pillow. So they go to the bank to deposit cash. Certainly that will be negatively impeded if the bank takes the move towards this cashless society. So I think, again, like football, like the HSA, you know, we are lacking leadership. Where is the Minister of Financial Services? Where is the Minister of Finance? Where is the consultation with Joe Public in terms of what are we getting for the services that arguably were built on by this jurisdiction?
Well, I don't know if it was you that read it or I read it, because God knows. But there was a lawyer writing the other day of, you know, the government.
Can I encourage you to pick it up? We got 15 seconds.
Okay, good.
58 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock is the time. We do have to pause, check in with the BBC News. But now we're talking about ridiculous banking policies led by a listener. Keep it locked. More to come.
Bobo.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation. OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
BBC News.
BBC News.
World news from the BBC.
Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive wind.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat.
Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here. More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. The American ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, has given his response to the decision by Britain, Norway, Australia, Canada and New Zealand to sanction 2 far-right Israeli ministers. Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich face an asset freeze and travel ban over accusations of inciting extremist settler violence and serious abuses of Palestinian rights in the occupied West Bank. Mr. Huckabee was speaking to the BBC.
I have not yet heard a good reason for why these two elected ministers have been sanctioned by countries that ought to respect the country's sovereignty and recognize that they have not conducted any criminal activity. So it's a huge shock, and I have a feeling the United States will respond appropriately to what they will see as an incredible overreach.
President Trump has said the National Guard will remain in Los Angeles until there is no danger. Hundreds of U.S. Marines have arrived in L.A. under orders from Mr. Trump, who's trying to contain protests in the city against immigration raids. The governor of California, Gavin Newsom, said he had filed an emergency motion to block the deployment of Marines and National Guard in L.A. The BBC's Carl Nassman says trouble could flare up again later on.
When the night comes here, that's when agitators come out, people that want to take advantage of the situation. We've been speaking with some of the demonstrators here, and they say, we're here to demonstrate peacefully, but there are a lot of emotions, especially after the immigration raids that we have seen playing out across Los Angeles and the surrounding area, and in fact, there were more of them today.
The mayor of LA said the unrest was only happening in a few blocks downtown, not in the wider city. Karen Bass called on the Trump administration to stop further immigration raids. Hundreds of mourners have held a candlelit vigil for 10 people killed in a school shooting in the Austrian city of Graz. Sarah Rainsford reports.
Neighbours had reported the first shots and screams from the school at around 10 a.m. Police and emergency teams were soon securing the area. Terrified parents then rushed to find their children. Officials say the gunman was 21, local and a former pupil who never graduated. We don't yet know why he did this, just the result, that his act of extreme violence has killed and injured children, teenagers and teachers. There will be 3 days of official mourning.
Argentina's Supreme Court has upheld the fraud conviction of the former President Cristina Kirchner. It cements a 6-year prison sentence and a lifetime ban from holding public office. As she's over 70, she can request that the sentence be converted to house arrest. BBC News. The 15-year-old suspect accused of trying to assassinate the Colombian presidential candidate Miguel Uribe has pleaded not guilty. The teen has been formally charged with the attempted homicide of Mr. Uribe, who was shot twice in the head at a campaign event over the weekend. Doctors say he's still in a critical condition and has shown little response to treatment. There's been another exchange of prisoners of war between Ukraine and Russia, with sick and wounded former combatants being released a day after a group of those aged under 25 were freed. The numbers haven't yet been made known. President Zelensky called Tuesday's swap an important humanitarian act. Russia's nationals, like Ukraine's, will return home for medical treatment. 70 white rhinos have been successfully relocated from South Africa to a national park in Rwanda as part of an ambitious conservation project. Camilla Mills reports.
The trip took 2 days as the animals travelled the 3,000 kilometres, first by plane, then by road. They were transferred in 2 loads, with each rhino weighing on average over 2,000 kilograms. Rwandan officials say it was the largest ever relocation of rhinos. The animals will have a dedicated veterinary team who will closely monitor their health and behaviour for several weeks to make sure they adapt to their new environment. The relocation is part of a programme which aims to support population growth, as rhinos are at significant risk of extinction because of large-scale poaching.
The president of Spain's top-flight football league has expressed concerns over FIFA's Club World Cup, calling the competition completely absurd. Javier Tebas said it would affect the entire ecosystem of national leagues, especially in Europe. The tournament is due to begin on Saturday in the United States. BBC News.
Opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Charleston and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, hey man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcast live over YouTube and Facebook at the keyword Straight Talk Radio Show. You can also find us on streaming video on the ACT Cruise Tourism page, also on Facebook. The phone lines are open. If you want to call and share your viewpoints on the air with us, either asking a question or making a statement, you can call us at 745-2626, or on WhatsApp, you can send us a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message by dialing the number 928-2562.
So I want to draw this out with a good analogy, right? Paint it with some crayons. Use my colleague's example. Let's just be clear. Imagine if it's you, husband, wife, 2 kids. Maybe make it 4 just to get it interesting. And in your household, for whatever reason, there is some woman or some man that walks in and they're sitting on the couch. And, you always ate around the dining table, and they say, no, we're not eating around the dining table anymore. We're going to eat in the couch. And everybody, your husband starts following the rules of this particular man or woman, or your wife, whatever it is. I think at some point in time, we would start saying, hold on a second, who in the world is this guy that's coming in here and telling us exactly what to do? I'm trying to say to you and give you this family analogy, because it's fine if someone wants to make a recommendation, but I'm giving you the family analogy because maybe the country is too big for us to think about.
Right.
But that is precisely what is happening. There's a foreign woman in your house that's telling your husband and your kids what to do. I think you should do something about it.
Right.
Okay? You should be very upset about it. Or there's a foreign woman in your house, whatever it is, male, female, you get the idea. Mm-hmm. And what we have in this country, whether, again, it's about cruise referendum, it's environment, it's NGOs, it's every other group telling Caymanians what to do. And granted, there are a few Uncle Toms. Nothing different with this. I saw a lawyer write a letter a couple of days ago, and he was saying basically, and either you read it or I read it, we both read it, it was a situation of, the people have voted and the government needs to act on the marijuana issue. This would be such a disservice to the people of the country if the government didn't act on the marijuana issue. Well, I'd like to know, where are the lawyers writing to talk about the fact that we have just decided, somebody have just decided, this foreign man on the couch, this foreign woman on the couch have just decided that we're going to go to a cashless society without telling you? Why are they able to just run your household the way that they want to run it? This is your country, Cayman. Our numbers are dwindling very quickly, but as long as we still have a little sense of control, I think you should do something about it. Mm-hmm. It is a case that at the minimum, even if you wanted to go there, I should have said, Mr. Harris, are you okay with this?
Right.
Would you like me to proceed? But no, you go to the banks, you can't get your mortgage paid. If the ATM isn't working that day, you get SCREWD, whatever it is. You get screwed. Mm-hmm. Okay? Listen, we're getting all messed up here. And I'm just simply saying to you, somebody's going to dismiss each one. Ellio, why are we making a big deal about the IDs? Ellio, why are we making a big deal about... Yeah, and every one of these things added together just becomes this big major problem. At some point in time, you need to draw the line. I'm simply going to say to you that the banks in Cayman are out of control. The banking situation in Cayman is out of control. The government needs to take some action. The banks are no longer here. I mean, you have all these systems where the United States is going to say to us, if you're not having a company over there that has a certain level of presence, then we know that this is a fraud and X, Y, and Z. Where are the same rules for Cayman? Where is the same rules that say you need to be a bank that actually have tellers? And we still take cash. I mean, the author right there on the email is saying government departments not taking cash. You should be able to walk in and say, look, it says legal tender. Mm-hmm. It has Her Royal Highness. Yes, she's dead now, but she's on the dollar bill.
Right.
But no, they say, well, we don't take that anymore. All I'm simply saying is, I think that you as the people of this country should be deciding where we want to go. If you decided that's where you want to go, then fine, let's do that. But that's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing foreign institutions, because that's what they are now. I think the last one is pretty much so. Foreign institutions that decide, and bodies and organizations, associations taking you where they want to go. And no one is consulting you. And I do not believe it is right when you have an institution in the country where, one, you mightn't even be able to see a Caymanian working, and two, you can't deal with a human being. You have to deal with a machine. And now you're going to tell elderly people. I want people to understand, in a cashless society, there's no transaction note that's going to be private.
Right.
Okay? And I just want you to think about that for a moment. No transaction will be private. I don't care if you're trying to buy a pack of cigarettes or you're on the side of the road at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. You're not going to do it. It's not going to be private.
That's right.
Okay. No, there's some benefits to come from that, Mr. Harris, but I'd just like to say, I think you should be involved in the decision-making process. I would encourage you as a Caymanian, while you still can, to try to speak up and tell your government on your behalf to do something about the financial institutions and exactly where it is that our country, is now going, because it's right now for our money that we spending, and we should have some control over it.
Absolutely. And to your point, now we will get to determine up front and in living color who really runs this town. Is it we? Is it really we country? Or as my colleague oftentimes refers to it, this private island mentality. When we talk about the private island, it's not we that is in control.
Yeah.
And I just want to draw that inference. One writer to the program says, gentlemen, the banks make their own rules. Since COVID, we pay for U.S. money and we pay to change checks. Banks are clearly running this island, and nobody has got checks and balances being applied to them, certainly not from the government level or otherwise. And again, I don't think that's too much of a stretch. We seem to be only concerned with the revenue that we earn from banks and financial institutions that come due at the first of the year, which allows banks to say that we contribute over 50% GDP to the country's overall economy, but it also enables them or puts them in a position to say, well, on that basis, because we contribute more than the average sector, we should be treated differently. We should have different rules as it relates to work permit. We should be able to hire who we want to hire, because the objective here is to be able to acquire the kind of talent that allows us to stay at the top of the totem pole in terms of offshore financial services. And that may all be, well and good, and certainly the argument may be strong, but like they are finding out in California, or like Elon Musk is finding out in the White House, there is nobody more powerful than the President of the United States. And in this country, nothing is more powerful than the laws of this country. No bank, no institution, no company, no person is above the law.
And let me give a little reminder for the public, because I'm sure I wasn't the only one living here at the time. At least over the last several months, there's been 2 occasions that I woke up. You go to the gas station or wherever it is to try to use your card. You can't use it.
Sure, because the system is down.
The system is down. No, can you really? What? Hold on. Let's see if I get this right. We're in a cashless society. You know what that means? You don't use cash anymore.
Right.
Like, cash is obsolete. It's irrelevant. It's like bringing stones to the party.
You might as well.
Yeah. And now you're going to tell me, oh, well, the system's down. So exactly how do I function here?
Yes.
How do I buy something?
How does commerce work?
So you're trying to carry us in a cashless society direction, and you can't even guarantee that the system is going to be up.
Right.
Listen. There's a saying in the Bible. What was it? The foolish man built his house upon the sand. Well, for what it's worth, with my electronic engineering degree half day on Fridays, I can tell you the chips are made from sand. Yeah. We seem to be literally building our system on the sand.
Yeah.
We really need to slow down, because if that's happened at least twice that I'm aware of over the last couple of months, God forbid, when you don't have cash, because that's what happened to me. I had to drive back home.
Yeah.
Luckily, you got enough gas in your car. Get some cash and come back.
Right.
But we want to move to a cashless society.
Yeah.
All I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, step up, speak up, and be heard.
Right, indeed. But these are relevant issues. And again, what started this conversation, well, not to discount, of course, my colleagues raising the issue on the bank several weeks ago about his own experience, but certainly to that emailer who shared their views to us on the program, allowing us to once again tackle this troubling, but as anyone could see, as they say, as blind Bartimaeus could see, this is very clearly an important discussion that impacts not just Caymanians, but everyone who lives here. Everyone who lives here. And Ellio made a fantastic point. Imagine the lifestyle of a cashless society, and the systems are down. You can't buy gas, you can't buy groceries, you can't conduct commerce of any kind because the system that controls your cashless society is no longer working. That's the first cog. The second cog, and certainly by no means no less important, is that nothing is private anymore.
The police,
There's going to be a digital record of every movement, every transaction, no matter how big or how small.
And with whom
you do it with. And there's a question of your, again, breach of your constitutional right to privacy. You know, it's a breach of the financial rules where cash is legal tender. But you remove that cash, then plastic becomes legal tender only if the computer system which it runs on is working.
Yeah.
And of course, we see certainly how communications have been impacted. We talk about this discussion, the need to expand the undersea cable so we can create some redundancies. Because whilst many think we exist under this bubble, if it wasn't for internet access, which is connecting the Cayman Islands with the rest of the world, albeit underwater, should that go, we are literally cut off from the rest of the world in this fastly approaching, if not already here, digital age. Yeah. So these are very clearly the issues that truly do impact our lives. And, well, whilst nobody is talking about it, nobody is championing it, you can count on us, Straight Talk, addressing these ticklish subjects and, again, encouraging our leaders to step up and sort of address it, because it is certainly a growing concern, arguably even more so than this Band-Aid approach to 7 Mile Beach that has been, of course, adopted by some quarters, and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and all it's going to take is, any one of the authorized institutions will have rights to search and get all the information that they need on you quick o'clock.
Yeah.
Because again, like I said, everything is recorded. Make up your minds what we want to do. If you think we should, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't have much of a problem with electronic transactions. Don't get me wrong. I think it's very convenient. I like it. But why can't we have a hybrid? Why can't we have both cashless as well as cash? I mean, why put, as old people would say, why put all your eggs in one basket? Yeah. Why would you do that?
Indeed. And the writer also makes a very clear and obvious point. There are some persons in our society that simply don't have the mental capacity to learn a new system, having grown up in a system where cash is king. It started as tuppence and pence, perhaps through their lifetime, and became dollars today, but it doesn't remove the reality that, a few coins jingling in your pocket is still considered legal tender.
Right.
So where are we going? What are our objectives in getting there? And whilst it is convenient, and certainly anyone who survived COVID in this country certainly appreciates the value of digital or online transactions, but it is not the end-all, be-all, and it is not without its own challenges. So we have to decide as a jurisdiction, as a country, as a little island in the Caribbean Sea, where exactly we are going. And again, this whole cashless society is not a global phenomenon. It's not a global standard, kind of like you remember the whole conversation about public beneficial ownership. When it becomes a global standard, the Cayman Islands will be right there front and center, following the rules like everybody else does. But no, it never became a global standard. We had it shoved down our throat.
As a global standard.
And it's treated like a global standard. And frankly, we had the gullibility of politicians to accept it. So these are the realities that obtain, and these are the realities that impact your daily life, people. Are you listening? Anybody out there? Where's that crickets?
My phone is at 5%. I really got to get the cricket in there.
You really got to get the cricket in there.
Yeah, that's another one to add to it. You're right. We're gonna buy a cricket.
You are. Well, it is 21 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock, and before we lose the rest of our listening audience, who probably are getting home by now and maybe getting out of their cars,
home,
but hopefully you're still picking us up on YouTube and Facebook. I want to give you a quick preview. We promised you a ongoing series discussion on what it takes to build a World Cup qualifying team. And, of course, we use that very broadly. If it's not the World Cup, what do we do to build a regional football powerhouse, a local football powerhouse, a generational national team that, again, we got 130 different nationalities. We seem to be, leaps and bounds over our neighbors in the Caribbean in a lot of areas, but we're not there yet on football. Friday, we had a delightful, and I cannot say enough about how much a great conversation we had with Coach Ernie Gillies-Seymour that really was an honest come-to-Jesus conversation as to what obtains without worrying about whose feelings we're going to hurt, because it's not personal. It's not intended to be personal. It's intended to look at this issue, which is a concern, and how do we address it through tangible, legitimate, workable solutions. Coach Gilly was our guest on Friday. Coming up tomorrow, we will have another, I dare say, local legend, if not local legend in the football arena, Coach Huta Ebanks. Certainly that name is almost synonymous with the District of West Bay, but arguably, again, if you lived in Cayman on the sporting scene for longer than 5 minutes, you know who I'm referring to. Coach Huta will be our guest in studios. Not only does he have the experience of being a football coach, he has the academic qualifications of years of clearly perfecting his chosen craft by learning, what's happening, strategies in the classroom, and then applying that to strategies on the field, whether it be to his own local domestic league clubs teams, or, of course, his experience at the national level.
I'm smiling because I'm saying, you can't be from West Bay and can't kick ball, right? You got to be able to play ball.
You have. That's right. That's right. That's the rite of passage in West Bay.
Yeah.
So Coach Huta is a West Bay football coach, and he will be our part 2 in our series of discussions in terms of building a World Cup ready national team. And again, that applies not just to the World Cup, but to regional games and also perhaps even improving the whole domestic league itself. We have seen successes in football, but clearly it is our position that we are not living up to our potential. And our potential says we have proven in little sparks throughout the history of football that we are able to rise above even our own disadvantages, as some may see it, being a small jurisdiction, not having professional players, having largely amateur players compete at a level where mostly professional players operate. But our amateur players have had glimmers of light where they rose above the odds and shine bright like a diamond. How do we make that a consistency? How do we build a national football program that lives up to our full potential? Tomorrow we continue part 2 in our series discussion on this subject with Coach Huta Ebanks. That conversation will begin at 5 o'clock, and we encourage everyone to tune into it. Hopefully Hump Day is not the same as Friday, where most people will not be at their favorite watering hole. So if you're a football fan, you're a football player, if you're a football coach or professional,
just a watcher.
Tune in and hear some of the concerns and comments raised by, frankly, one of your members, your fraternity members, in the person of our guest tomorrow, Coach Huta Ebanks.
I definitely want to just say that I think that we have the potential, as you quite rightly pointed out. We've seen it in other areas, and I think it's no different when it comes to our football players, okay? For the person who talked about the soccer, for our football players, is nothing different. I believe that the only thing different between the gold nugget and the gold ring is someone that had the vision and took the time and crafted it properly. So I think we just need to invest in those players. I think we owe it to them, and I think we owe it to the country to be able to get them fit. Let's get it done over the next 4 years so that we can get on the world stage. It might bring home the medal right away, but it can definitely do something that makes us all proud as a country. And again, like we talked about, it goes just beyond football and sports, but also tourism and national pride and a myriad of different things. And when we talk about potentially being able to do that just over, perhaps with $6 million over 4 years, I think that's absolutely doable. Hopefully you'll join us tomorrow for that discussion.
No, a beautiful point, Ellio, you make again. If we strive for excellence, if we strive to attain regularly and with consistency the level of performance that we have achieved, then nothing is out of bounds for the Cayman Islands. Growing up in this country, Cayman used to be the innovators, used to be the leaders. Arguably, in some cases, we are, but in other realities, we're not anymore. We've fallen down the totem pole, whether that be an acceptance that mediocrity is viewed as excellence. I don't know where the tide changed, but clearly it's not the direction we should take. And that is our only goal. How can we help our people through the various issues that we face become the best version of ourselves? And if we don't want it, then just admit it. Say, this is not a priority for us. Great.
Just do it. We're just running up and down for health purposes.
We'll just get rid of it and move on again to the pool, for example, where we are seeing significant performances from our swimmers, arguably putting Cayman on more of the map than football ever did. Let's focus on it instead of football and leave football to be a domestic pastime.
Yeah. Well, we don't want that to happen.
We certainly don't want that to happen. But if we do not embrace the reality, if we do not strive to be the best version of ourselves, and if we don't have the adequate leadership to help us get there, then really we're
that's what we're doing anyway.
Peeing in the wind, basically, and that wind is blowing in your face, and we know the results of that physics example. But at 28, now 29 minutes past the hour.
What's the clock? Time check. I got to get time check.
30 seconds left.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, just thank you very much for joining us. And I have two good topics to discuss soon. One on the regiment, and the other one's going to be about this satellite thing that I talked about when it comes to missing people.
Okay.
Hopefully you'll join us tomorrow. Thank you very much for joining us here in Straight Talk. See you here tomorrow.
See you here tomorrow for another exciting conversation tomorrow. Huda Ebanks on Straight Talk, brought to you by Bobo 103.1 FM. Good night.
The home of the BBC World Service.